The Red Award is for invaluable service to baseball. And our winner has done all of that and then some. More than 50 years in the game, 21 years as a player, coached, head of player development, scout, and general manager of the Pittsburgh Pirates the last time they won a division in 1992. Fittingly, Red managed Ted Simmons for the first 7 full years of his career and a couple partial years before that. Red made him a starting catcher at age 20, and I'm sure the Red had got a few gray hairs from Teddy along the way early on there, but 21 years later, he turned up on the Hall of Fame ballot for the first time. It was a great day. Unfortunately, 456 votes were cast in that election, Baseball Writers election. 439 people, unfortunately, did not vote for Ted Simmons. He got 17 votes and dropped off the ballot somehow. 25 of my friends told me they voted for Ted. Well, 8 of them at least are lying, because they did not. I could quote you a bunch of stats: 2,472 hits, 285 average, more than 1,300 RBIs. But now those don't matter anymore. Finally, after 25 years later, the baseball's modern era committee, thanks to the help of analytics people like Bill James and others, Ted Simmons, as the oversight has been corrected. He is in the Baseball Hall of Fame, and he'll be honored next July in Cooperstown.
When you find out, how does that happen? And then what happens in the ensuing weeks and months after?
Well, briefly, you're waiting forever for this phone call. And you're waiting, and sometime between 4 and 5 o'clock, they tell you, so make sure you're there and to answer your phone. And it gets to be, 4:10 and 4:20 and 4:40, and you're going, well, it's not going to happen. And then all of a sudden the phone rings, and it's, Miss Clark, who runs the whole shebang there in Cooperstown, and you hear her voice, and then you realize that the wait is over, and it's just like, Niagara Falls full of relief. It's just wonderful, and your knees buckle, and you realize what's happened, and it's hard to describe. Pretty special.
Emotional time for you, I'm sure, when you found out, but it's also something that you realize at some point you're sharing with your wife and your family and your friends and these folks here. I mean, it's about you. There's no question about that. But there's others that are sharing in your joy.
Well, you hear from everyone. I got that phone call, and they asked to wait an hour to release it, so Hall of Fame can do all the business they want to first. And so you wait, and then you start telling everybody, and then it gets announced. Then the phone starts ringing. And while you're on the phone, you'll get 10 texts. And you get off the phone and start answering texts. And your phone and voicemail, 10 more phone calls. So from like 6:30 that Sunday night until about Thursday night, it was nonstop unless I was asleep. So you hear from everybody. They're so happy. And they've been waiting as long as I have. And they feel the same kind of exuberance and relief. And they tell you all about it.
Well, I was excited to be one of those texts to you, and everybody, of course, is overjoyed that you're going to be representing the Cardinals in Cooperstown, and it's going to be a special moment for all of us. So, we had an award here tonight for Bill James, and it was clear that from what Rick said, that there was a time where the baseball writers didn't understand perhaps the fullness of the player, and I'm wondering if with the WAR statistic, for example, that just talks about just how good you were in those years, how good a hitter. Do you think maybe the analytics has helped you a little bit over time?
Well, I've said it already, and I've talked to Bill James tonight. I introduced myself. Really, I'd never met him, but I've read much about him and some of his early books, and it's clear that it was people like Bill James and his associates who, in those kind of basement dark rooms, were talking to each other, and then you say, hey, maybe somebody might have fallen through the cracks here. Mm-hmm. And as they started talking to one another, it started surfacing to the first floor, and then eventually people all over started talking about it, because I was one and done. My first year on the ballot, you know, Rick was saying, I didn't get 5%, and at that time it was terminal. You were gone forever, and I had taken and placed the Hall of Fame right out of my, you know, consciousness. And then they changed the rules back in '94, and then they revamped the Veterans Committee and created this thing called the Modern Era Committee, and I started, you know, surfacing again. And again, I have, you know, much credit to give the analytics people because they really kept my Hall of Fame candidacy alive.
Well, we're glad for that, and we're glad Bill is here to hear that. Now, he said at his words, and I'm sure you heard it, that when the Red Sox were here in town, the Cardinal fans were really nice to him, but we know how they really felt, right? And they weren't that excited about the Red Sox.
Well, they're trying to be nice.
We were nice about it, Bill, but don't take that too far. Right. So you were a competitive player. I mean, certainly you would describe yourself as a guy who was all out, anybody that watched you play. And what are you most proud of when you look back at your career?
Two things. The longevity. I got to play a long time. And not everybody gets to do that. Injuries stop careers short, you know, all along the way for so many. And I never had any serious injuries that stopped me cold. Mm-hmm. The other thing that I'm really pleased, and, you know, sanguine, it's blood here, it's red. And I mean, I'm Cardinal, and will always be Cardinal. I was born here.
Yeah.
I was raised here.
Yeah.
And I'm Cardinal.
That's great.
But one of the other things I feel really lucky and grateful to is having been in so long, I've been exposed throughout the entire universe of this industry. Mm-hmm. I've been to, you know, Milwaukee. Mm-hmm. I've been to Seattle. I've been to San Diego. I've been to Cleveland. I've been to Atlanta. I've been to Pittsburgh. Right. And you see just how vast this industry is. And so I'm really lucky to have seen the full exposure. And having gotten to play a long time, it enabled me to see this giant industry. And I'm most pleased and luckiest about those two things.
So you played a long time to maybe get some of those opportunities, but certainly your capacity, Ted, to serve so many roles. You know, you player development director in the minor leagues for the Cardinals, general manager, we talked about, scout, et cetera, et cetera. You were as involved as anybody in our players union, and I knew that full well because I was one of the ones that you brought into that. Mm-hmm. We spent a lot of time together. No one more respected in our union than Ted Simmons. So that vast array of experience, do you think that makes a difference when you start looking at somebody as a Hall of Famer, that their contribution to baseball is on the field, but you did so much more than that?
Well, I think it helps. I mean, if you've had a long playing career like I did and was lucky enough to, you know, have success, I mean, that's going to be the first and foremost criterion
right.
for your election to a Hall of Fame. But if you have more to it, that helps. And if you're borderline like I was, I guess the additional, you know, full range of my contribution becomes a part of it. And so I think it's part of the whole, you know, picture.
So I know you to be very deep thinker, philosophical, and as well as just a great player. Marvin Miller also being a part of the Hall of Fame. Is that maybe kind of a perfect little connection for you because of your involvement with the players, representing the players, that you guys would go in together?
You know, everybody who follows baseball today, you know, has to have been in an attic not to know and understand the contribution that Marvin Miller has made. All I can say at this point, having just been elected to the, you know, Baseball Hall of Fame, I couldn't have handpicked anybody I would have rather gone into the Hall of Fame with. So that's how special he was. That's how important he was to me and my family. And if I'd have gotten to pick, I would have picked him.
Boy, that's great to hear. So as I hear you say that, that sounds like such a perfect thought for you as you actually go in. Have you started thinking about what you're going to say
of course.
At that moment?
Of course.
Did we just get a preview of it?
No, you haven't gotten a preview of anything. Okay, I'm just telling you. I've been thinking about it.
You've been thinking about it. So what do you you'll have family there and friends there, and so again the philosophical Ted Simmons. But what do you suppose that moment's going to be like when you actually go in and you actually there? You told us about the moment when you found out and kind of the why of being there, but you're actually in that moment in La La Land of baseball, Cooperstown, and we know what that's like. It is just baseball through and through. What do you suppose that moment's going to be like for you?
Well, I've thought about it, and I've talked to a couple of existing members in the Hall of Fame. They've called me and congratulated me, all that sort of stuff. And they've kind of said, you know, family's going to be there, and, you know, the whole world's going to be watching, and you're going to feel a little uptight. Yeah. And you can probably manage most of it, he said, and they've said. But the thing that'll get you the most. He says, when you turn around, you see these guys behind you, and they are the existing living members of the Hall of Fame, and you see those faces, and you start remembering as a boy, I mean, who those people are and who you grew up, you know, admiring and, you know, modeling your life after, and you see those folks, they said, that's going to get you. I don't care who you are.
And you understand that we all will be feeling that along with you as you feel that, and you'll be transmitting that to us, which is very special. Ted, we are so honored to be able to honor you as the newest member of the Hall of Fame. I'm going to give you just the last word for this crowd here. You've been to several of these events. I know you have, and you've been here over the years, and you've been here with some of the great players of all time, and I know you know how special this event is to proclaim the sport of baseball to through our writers and to the city of St. Louis, to Cardinal fans, just as your kind of last hurrah. What would you want to say to these folks?
Musial, Schoendienst, Gibson, Brock, Ozzie Smith, Whitey, think about it.
Ted Simmons.